Support the channel by becoming a channel member or joining the Patreon through patreon.com/manlightfoot. Welcome to another episode of Simple Thoughts. Today's episode, I'm going to be talking about X-Men 97. Why? Well, it's just so good. I really cannot get enough of this show right now. Even though there's only been 3 episodes out on Disney Plus, it's just been something I cannot stop thinking about. I guess I should go a little bit into my history when it comes to X-Men. I played like arcade games like Marvel vs. Capcom, and that's where I saw X-Men characters or Marvel characters in general. Or, you know, I see the shows sometimes on through commercials and such. But the movies were like my biggest introduction to the X-Men. It's how I got a bit more of my understanding of them until I watched a more modern series, X-Men Evolution, that came out in the 2000s. That was the one X-Men series for me that I grew up on. That's like my like standard when it comes to X-Men and how I want my X-Men. Of course, I grew up in the culture of the 90s series, though. You could not go without knowing the notes to the theme song. Like, it's unheard of. I'd be surprised, honestly. But ultimately, that's just my whole thing. I mainly watched a lot of the movies all the way up to... Actually, I think I stopped at Dark Phoenix. No, I watched Dark Phoenix. I watched Dark Phoenix. For the most part, I liked the movies, but then as they went along, they started losing my attention. They just weren't hitting as hard. They sure as hell were not as great as X-Men Evolution. So I just pretty much started souring a little bit on X-Men because it's just like, I'm not getting some quintessential X-Men, you know? I'm not getting the heroics. I'm not getting the drama of the mutant suppression and everything. I wasn't feeling that, at least in the movies. The show's always delivered on that, even with, say, Wolverine and the X-Men, which I also watched. That was great. So it's interesting coming into X-Men 97, which is a sequel to the old 90s series, but ultimately just following exactly from where the 90s series left off, basically. And it's funny because I didn't watch a lot of the 90s series. I didn't really keep up with any episodes. I don't know any arcs. I can name a few arcs here and there of like the old Spider-Man series, but this one with X-Men, I couldn't name many. But it's interesting coming into this new series, and I feel right at home with it. It was just so amazing to see my favorite characters just again in their purest forms. You know, it's like, oh my god, Cyclops, oh my god, Jean, Wolverine's here, Jubilee's finally getting some proper recognition again. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, honestly, that I had that feeling. It's like I'm nostalgic for something that I only was in proximity to, and it just goes to show how much good writing can go a long way. Like, and good animation as well, because it's a phenomenal looking series, but we'll get into that. But ultimately, the writing pulled me in because I just felt like I was getting some pure superhero story, you know, like some absolute pure grade from straight from the comics superhero story. And I felt nostalgic for that because a lot of new stuff that it's like superhero shows just weren't hitting as hard. They don't hit like this because they get too wrapped into the weeds of things, trying to, you know, placate to a mainstream audience a lot of the time, instead of just trying to be its own unique thing and just hoping an audience gravitates to it. This said, we're going to be our own unique thing because that's what the original was. Its own unique thing. And that's what people gravitated to it for. This one ends up doing something I just love seeing. We start off great with a mutant being kidnapped and the X-Men have to come in and save the day, and you're seeing all this great action. You're just getting right to it, okay? It's not wasting time building too much lore and everything, because that needs to come out as the show goes on. And with this, it's a continuation, so there's already lore, but it's just trying to reintroduce that lore, you know, and it's doing it properly with just little bits and nuggets here and there, while also having a few new characters to be able to help act as like the new audiences watching. The character can ask a question about something that these veteran characters have gone through already. That way it can catch up new audiences, like say me. Like most recently, their third episode, they go against Mr. Sinister, who they previously had dealings with in the old series. I haven't watched that series, but they have this one kid there who's new who asks, who's Mr. Sinister? And that actually answers the question for me for who he is to these vets. It gets me involved without having to waste any time or do too much backstory or anything like that. I'm sorry, that's just good writing. That's clever. That is so clever. Like, I'm watching this and I'm like, you're making me feel right at home, even though I've never been here before. That's good. That's really good. I like everything that they're able to pull off with this, honestly. And it's so fascinating to me that they were able to pull this off, because I think a big thing that plays into that is the fact that as I grew up with the movies, I realized they're not representing X-Men like I want them to. Like I said, I watched Evolution, and Evolution was giving me pure X-Men still. You know, I'm getting the drama of the mutant suppression. I'm getting these fun characters who utilize their powers in either responsible ways or irresponsible ways in some cases, you know? Watching the movies, it's like everyone's watered down. It's mostly trying to build up Wolverine, who's cool, yeah, but it's like, I want to see everybody else, you know? With the new X-Men series, this one straight up says, no, everyone gets the spotlight. Everyone's gonna shine, okay? Everybody's shining. No more of this, oh, this guy's kind of ass, this X-Men sucks, this one's not as great. Nah, everyone is great on this team, and we're gonna showcase it all. We're gonna remind everybody why the X-Men are one of the greatest superhero teams of all time, okay? And they straight up do it in the first episode, immediately. I'm like, you made me fall in love with X-Men again. You did it. You're seeing everybody in their purest form. You're seeing the might of Storm. You're seeing her just come down with the thunder on these bad guys, just speaking as epically as possible.
Ancient sands, heed my command.
Yes, Queen.
You're seeing Cyclops swiftly moving through and beating down bad guys like it's nothing, not worrying about whether or not the laser's gonna cut anybody, because they recognize it doesn't work like that. It's just regular impacts, like a punch. And so he's swift, he's kicking everybody's asses. Everybody's looking cool. Everything is great, and it's just phenomenal. And it just is, it's amazing to me that it managed to resonate to that degree. And it all looks amazing. That's the greatest thing. It took a lot of modern animation sensibilities and absolutely ran away with them. Like, it is doing some stuff that you thought wasn't possible. I knew what the old series looked like, and it was not the best looking series. We can admit that. It had its moments, but there were moments where it's like, ugh. But then you get to this new one, and they said, we're gonna make this look pretty, okay? This is gonna look like a very pretty series. We want this to look like the comics leaped off the page, and they did it. I mean, that's kind of how the old series looked anyway. The old series did kind of look like the comics leaped out at you from the page, and with its style. And this one literally managed to copy that style and also evolve it and be able to push it beyond. It manages to utilize so many different techniques, and in a lot of cases there's like 3D usage. They use 3D models for the action, and it's fairly seamless. You don't really get caught up in thinking, I don't know, was that rigged? Was that a CG model or anything like that? It's just like all made in a way that you're just like, if anything, I notice frame differences, but even then it looks cool. This is a very cool looking series. This series brings you back to a nostalgic period you may not have been nostalgic for, honestly. Or it might just be because you just love X-Men. I think that's the biggest conclusion I've come to, is because I love X-Men. And that's what I've been missing for so long. I just wanted some pure, unadulterated X-Men. And this is giving me a ton of that. It's giving me the Saturday morning cartoon vibes, even though it comes out on Wednesdays. It's like, that's a missed opportunity when you think about it. You could have people waking up on a Saturday ready to stream the new episode, but beggars can't be choosers, you know. But honestly, another great thing I have to praise this show for very much is the fact that it actually goes above and beyond in trying to placate the allegory between minority groups and the mutants. Like, they're playing this allegory perfectly. And honestly, when you think about the X-Men, they are such a unique team, and it had to take a lot of brain power to come up with that team. Honestly, I'm jealous of it, so I'm wondering how can I be able to get to that type of brain power. Thankfully, this video is sponsored by Brilliant. Brilliant is this great way to learn by doing, with thousands of lessons from math, data analysis, programming, and more. It's a great way to learn and gain strong problem-solving skills, as well as build a learning habit for yourself that'll help you and your studies or profession. They have these great lessons for programming that are great for real-world applications. There's a bunch of different coding lessons that'll help you on your programming journey. Now, of course, the X-Men would need someone with good programming skills in their roster of mutants. Otherwise, how else do they make sure Cerebro doesn't fry anyone's brains, or make sure that jet doesn't fall out of the sky because of a bad code? But the real good news is that Brilliant has a good deal going right now. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit the link on the screen or click on the link in the description. Brilliant is such a fun way to learn that you definitely don't want to miss out on this deal. And I do want to say thank you to Brilliant for sponsoring this video.
Please. Do not make me let you down.
When I think about X-Men, I do think about the fact that they can touch upon a very real situation while being able to feed that to a mainstream audience and make them understand it a little bit. I think that's what the old series was able to tap into a little bit, and this new one is still carrying that torch proudly. When it comes to the allegories between, say, race or sexual identity, gender identity and such, they knock it out of the park here by showcasing exactly the type of people that obviously hate people who are different. You know, this series breaks it down to a simple level, so where it's like you can comprehend that. You can easily understand. It's like, yeah, I know what this is. I've seen this before in real life. It literally puts up a mirror to society, and it's saying, hey, this is how you guys look. This is because what shocked me was the second episode of this new series. Literally, they did January 6th. It's January 6th. It's hard to miss. There is no subtlety here because there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be any subtlety with what occurred in saying what happened there. And they do it so well because they have this one guy who absolutely hates mutants. He just believes he needs to get rid of them, and he believes the UN, like the government officials, are all traitors because they're giving someone like Magneto a platform, as Magneto's been put on trial for crimes against humanity. They have this terrorist who just wants to take out Magneto with this gun that pretty much can suppress mutant powers permanently. And they break into the UN building to get to the government officials and to get to Magneto and them. And it's just like, oh my God, literally these idiots are doing this when they're just putting a person on trial. Everyone has a right to a fair trial. But they're like, no, we need to just get rid of them immediately. It's just so visceral. It's visceral because they're using language that these right-wing nut jobs would say. A lot of these alt-right nut jobs would say these type of things, and it's just like, that's the attitude.
You're kind. You act like you got it so bad. Normal people have it hard too. Harder. We just have the dignity not to
They're just giving the attitude exactly. That's what they would say. This is in the ballpark of exactly what they would say. And it's clever. It's clever in how it feeds it to the audience. It's not trying to hide it away. It's not trying to be cutesy with it. It's making it clear this is what these type of people think like. You know, they believe, they want to say, oh, it's the whining. I can't take the whining. Basically saying you're complicit in your oppression. You're complicit in the system hurting you. That's what you're saying. It literally shows that it's like you're saying, you're trying to say they're violent people. You're literally trying to kill somebody. You're hurting a bunch of people. He's saying all this as he's punching somebody who's just defending the building. Literally. It just goes to show it's like, you guys are hypocrites. And it's all fed back so perfectly. I love how the allegory is done in this. I also really love this one moment between Jean and Storm where they're just sitting down and discussing moments of the past. And it's so real because it's Jean when she's so uncertain about what's supposed to happen with her baby, because it's going to be a baby that's a mutant and she doesn't know how to feel about it being raised in a world where the child has to be treated differently. It's so interesting to see it done because Storm is there to comfort her in that situation. As you watch it, you're like, this is a black person literally trying to show comfort here, saying it's like, I found community. I found people who love and respect me for who I am. Like, there are people out there for me. There will be people out there for your baby, and it's so powerful. It literally reminds me of why I love Storm. Like, oh my god, it's such a beautiful scene, and I love everything they did here. It's honestly one of those things that just shows that I feel like X-Men is a very needed concept because it breaks down our human emotions to a simple level. It breaks down how society interacts with itself to a very basic level that is so easy to comprehend. It's surprising anyone can miss it. And a lot of people obviously miss it, as we see with so many people who just believe, no, X-Men are just people who have superpowers and they fight and punch and kick and all that, and that's it.
This is a shared world with a common future, and that my kind, like yours, have the right to live in it.
They don't like to see the forest for the trees. They miss everything. That's their prerogative. You can't lead a horse to water and hope it drinks. Regardless of anything, X-Men 97 I think is a great series you need to be watching. If you are not, if you love X-Men, you should be watching this. It is something you should have on your radar to be watching for X-Men. Absolutely, I cannot recommend it enough. It is such a great series. What did you think of X-Men 97? Leave a comment below, and always remember, it's just a thought.
Thank you.